Welcome, dear listener, to the Sleeping Hourglass. Tonight, we travel back to the very beginning, not to myth or legend, but to the quiet soil where Scripture says humanity first opened its eyes. This is the story of Adam and Eve, not as distant names, but as the first parents whose choices still echo in every human heart. If you enjoy resting here, a gentle like or subscription helps keep this peaceful corner of time alive. Before the world awakens to the rhythm of footsteps or the murmur of human voices, there is a silence so deep it feels almost eternal. It is the silence of beginnings, that soft moment between nothing and something, when the earth rests under the gaze of the one who shaped it. The ground is quiet, the air untouched, the horizon unbroken. A world has been formed, yet it waits for its keeper, its steward, its first soul to breathe meaning into its mornings. The dust lies patient upon the earth, small grains shaped by divine intention. Each speck carries potential, although nothing yet moves among them. There are no histories, no memories, no laughter or sorrow etched into the soil. There is only stillness, vast, gentle, and profoundly expectant. The story of humanity has not yet begun, but its outline shimmers at the edge of God's intention, waiting to be touched by breath. The Creator bends toward the ground He formed, His presence filling the new, made world like a warm dawn spreading across an untouched horizon. Light has already been spoken into place, waters have been divided, land has emerged, plants and trees stand rooted in obedience to His word. Yet something essential remains unfinished, something that will bear His likeness in a way no mountain, river, or star can. The dust stirs, not by wind, but by purpose. Genesis holds its breath. With hands that formed galaxies and shaped the depths of oceans, God gathers the earth. Not with haste, not with indifference, but with careful, deliberate tenderness. There is intimacy in the gesture, as though the very soil is being honored with a sacred calling. The dust takes shape beneath His touch, not as something lifeless, but as something prepared, something waiting for the miracle that will transform clay into consciousness. A form emerges, still and silent, a body crafted with intention, with proportion, with dignity that even in stillness seems to echo the dignity of the one who formed it. The chest does not rise, the eyes do not open, the pulse has yet to find its rhythm. And yet everything within this shape speaks of purpose, of design, of a destiny woven long before the earth first trembled beneath the voice of God. Then the breath comes. Not a command spoken into the air, not a distant proclamation, but something far more intimate. God leans close, closer than any creature will ever experience again, and breathes into the nostrils of the one He has formed. Warmth enters the cold clay. Light touches unlit places. Life pours into stillness like a river rising with sudden abundance. The dust, once merely dust, receives the gift no other part of creation has known. God's own breath, carrying His nearness, His image, His intention. The chest rises. The heartbeat begins. The eyes open to a world already waiting for Him. Adam inhales the air of a new creation, a world that breathes alongside him for the very first time. His first breath is not one of confusion, but of recognition. Instinctively, deeply, he knows the presence that shaped him. Life does not begin with fear or uncertainty. It begins in the warmth of divine closeness, in the soft glow of a garden designed for his flourishing. He sits up slowly, feeling the weight and wonder of existence settle into his limbs. The earth beneath him is soft, its warmth lingering from the touch of the one who formed him. The sky stretches wide above him, unmarred by sorrow, untouched by the passage of time. Colors shimmer in hues too pure for later eyes to fully recall. Greens that sing softly, blues that rest on the edge of eternity. Adam places his hand upon the ground, feeling the soil that once held him in stillness. It feels familiar, like the memory of a dream he has only just awakened from. He sees the trees surrounding him, their branches swaying not with wind alone, but with a kind of greeting. Birds perch above him, quiet at first, as though recognizing the significance of this moment. The arrival of the one who will name them, who will tend the world with a care mirroring the Creator's own. Yet for now, Adam simply breathes. Every inhale is a revelation, every exhale a quiet hymn of gratitude. He does not yet know the names of things, but he feels their presence, their closeness, their gentle invitation to explore, to tend, to understand. The garden around him glows with the life God placed within it. Rivers flowing with clarity, branches heavy with fruit, flowers opening to scents that drift like soft melodies through the air. He looks toward the one who formed him, and though Scripture does not record the expression on Adam's face, imagination senses the awe that must have filled him. To behold the Creator, to stand in the radiance of the one who breathed life into his lungs. That is the first true wonder of humanity's story. God speaks, and the words settle into Adam's soul with the weight of purpose and the gentleness of love. He is placed not in a barren land, but in a garden prepared in advance. Eden is not a random setting, it is a gift, a home shaped with intention, a sanctuary where creation and Creator meet in harmony. Adam rises to his feet, feeling strength flow through him. The ground supports him, as though the earth itself acknowledges him as its steward. When he walks, his footsteps make no sound of sorrow or struggle, only the soft imprint of a being at peace with his surroundings. The breeze brushes past him, carrying the scent of fruit and leaves, and the sunlight warms his skin as though welcoming him into a world that recognizes him. Everywhere he looks, he sees life, vibrant, abundant, unmarred. Trees that whisper in the wind, rivers that reflect the clarity of the sky. Creatures moving with innocence, alert to his presence yet unafraid. This is a world untouched by fear, untouched by sin, untouched by the weight that will one day press upon human hearts. For now, everything rests in balance, in harmony, in a peace too pure for later ages to fully reclaim. Adam explores the garden slowly, absorbing each detail as though it were written into his very being. He feels the bark of trees beneath his fingertips, watches the water ripple around smooth stones, listens to the rustle of creatures moving through the underbrush. He senses the generosity of the one who gave him this world, not merely as scenery, but as a place where relationship can unfold, where purpose can blossom like fruit upon the branches, and yet, beneath the beauty, beneath the abundance, there is something deeper at work. The beginning of memory. Adam has no past before this moment, yet every sight, every sound, every breath becomes part of the story God is writing upon his heart. Each detail forms the foundation upon which all human experience will someday stand. He is the first, the beginning, the one who will carry the echo of Eden long after he leaves it. As the light shifts across the garden and Adam continues his gentle exploration, the world waits with him, everything that will unfold, the companionship he will long for, the joy of union, the whisper of temptation, the trembling of choice lies ahead. But for now, all is stillness, breath, and the quiet certainty that life begins not with chaos, but with divine closeness. Humanity's story starts in the soft cradle of dust, shaped by hands that know the depth of creation's purpose, sustained by the breath that carries eternity within it. And Adam, standing in the glow of his first day, is the living reflection of the one who made him. Dust, yes, but dust infused with sacred breath. For in the stillness of dust, the first heartbeat of humanity finds its rhythm. The garden wakes in a hush, as if dawn itself is holding its breath. Light pools softly along the riverbanks, sliding over stones still damp with the memory of creation. Eden is young, so young that time has not yet learned to hurry, so young that nothing knows how to fade. Even the shadows seem new, stretching themselves for the first time beneath the trees. In this cradle of the world, everything listens, leaves tremble with the faintest wind, streams murmur secrets in languages that only the newly made might understand, and the soil rests as though it feels the warmth of God's hands still lingering within it. Adam stands at the edge of the morning, blinking at a horizon that has never before been seen. There is no fear in him, no memory of harm, nothing to warn him that a world could be otherwise. His breath rises and falls in quiet wonder. Each inhale tastes of earth made clean. Each exhale seems to join the rhythm of the garden. He is not merely in Eden. He is part of it, woven into its first heartbeat. He begins to walk. The grass bends beneath his feet, not in protest but in greeting, as though delighted by its first visitor. Birds circle above him, tracing soft arcs through the air, their wings whispering like brushstrokes across a canvas. Adam watches them with a smile that feels carved from stillness. He does not know the word for joy yet, but he feels it settle easily into his chest. Everything here is abundant. Everything here is right. A deer steps into the clearing, delicate and unafraid. Its eyes, bright as polished amber, meet Adam's. For a moment they regard one another, creature and caretaker, and something within Adam stirs. He reaches out a hand. The deer leans forward, touching its nose lightly against his palm. The connection is brief but full, a silent exchange of trust. When the deer steps back, Adam releases a breath he did not realize he was holding, sensing the world widen a little more around him. Naming begins not as a task, but as a kind of music. He speaks, and the air seems to hold his words gently, letting them sink into the soil, into the fur and feathers of the creatures before him. Lion, sparrow, tortoise, each name settles with purpose, like stones placed carefully along a garden path. Adam listens to the sound of his own voice, marveling that speech, this delicate string of breath, can shape meaning. The animals gather in small, curious clusters, as if they too understand that something sacred is unfolding. Time passes softly. The sun drifts toward its zenith, warm and unhurried. Adam rests beside the river, trailing his fingers through the water. It ripples around his skin with a playful insistence, tugging at his reflection, stretching and bending it into shimmering shapes. He watches each distortion with gentle fascination, noting the curve of his face, the strength of his limbs, the strange depth of his own eyes. He knows he is formed by God's hands, yet he also feels the mystery of himself, a creation still learning what it means to be alive. The animals move around him in a living tapestry of color and motion. A pair of birds, bright, noisy companions, hop near his knee. He laughs, a sound crisp as early morning light, and the birds tilt their heads as though eager for more. A fox circles behind him, brushing its tail against the grass. Even the fish seem to gather near the river's edge, glimmering just beneath the surface like drifting fragments of sky. Yet as the afternoon deepens, a subtle quiet begins to settle. It is not loneliness, not yet, but a faint awareness, like hearing an echo without knowing the original sound. Adam feels it in the space to his left, where no footsteps match his own. He feels it in the river's song, which flows endlessly but never speaks in a voice shaped like his. He feels it most when he looks at the creatures gathered around him. They are beautiful. They are full of life. But none meet his gaze with the same searching recognition he carries within himself. He stands once more and walks among them. Slower now. The animals follow, each in their gentle rhythm, but the stirring inside him grows. It is a longing without a name, a pull towards something he cannot yet imagine. Adam pauses beneath a broad tree whose branches stretch like open arms. The leaves shimmer softly, catching the slanted rays of the sun. He rests his hand against the trunk, feeling its firmness, its quiet life. The tree receives him kindly but does not answer him. Evening begins to gather along the edges of the sky. Colors soften into warm gold and deep rose, painting Eden in hues that feel older than the day itself. The river catches the light and scatters it in trembling shards, as if reluctant to let go of the sun. Adam watches it with a wistful expression. Beauty surrounds him, endless, perfect, inviting, but something within him remains untouched, like a chamber of the heart waiting for a key. He sits again, this time on a smooth stone warmed by the fading day. His hands rest loosely in his lap. Around him, the creatures settle into their own patterns of rest, birds tucking their heads beneath their wings, deer lowering themselves into the grass, insects humming a slow evening lullaby. The world prepares for night, yet Adam's thoughts drift toward the empty space beside him, the space where another presence could sit, someone who might understand his laughter, his questions, the quiet weight of his wonder. The longing grows clearer now, rising like a tide within him. Not for more food, for Eden is generous. Not for more beauty, for every corner of the garden glows with purpose. Not for more tasks, for naming is a joy that fills his hands and mind. No, this longing is different. It is for companionship. A soul to share the softness of twilight, a heart that beats with a rhythm echoing his own. The air cools, brushing against his skin. Adam lifts his face to the sky, watching as the first stars appear like delicate pinpricks in the fading blue. He feels something shift around him, subtle as the sigh of a distant breeze. It is not the animals. It is not the river. It is something deeper, something attentive. The garden listens, waiting. And then Adam feels it, the presence of God drawing near. Not in thunder, not in flame, but in the quiet certainty that fills the space around him. The longing in his chest is seen. The H that has no word is understood. Adam bows his head, not out of fear but in peaceful trust. He does not speak. He simply rests, knowing the one who shaped his breath also hears the spaces between those breaths. Night settles. The stars multiply. The garden sighs a soft amen to the end of the day, and in that sacred quiet, God prepares the answer to Adam's unspoken yearning, moving gently toward the creation of companionship, toward the deep, wondrous mystery that waits in the next chapter, where longing will take form and breath. There is a stillness in Eden tonight, soft, warm, peaceful, the kind of stillness that settles only when everything is exactly as it should be. Adam feels it in his bones, in the rhythm of his breath, in the quiet pulse of life that flows through the garden. The day has been gentle, filled with the hush of names whispered to creatures who gathered close, curious beneath the canopy of light. Yet somewhere in the quiet corners of his being, there lingers a faint ache, not of pain, but of incompleteness. A subtle longing he does not know how to name. God sees it, God knows it, and the garden itself seems to wait for what will come next. When evening deepens, Adam's limbs grow heavy. A divine drowsiness, tender and irresistible, drapes over him like a cloak woven from moonlight. He does not resist it. He trusts the one who shaped him. He lets the night take him. He sinks into sleep so profound, so untroubled, that not even the rustle of leaves stirs his dreams. It is a holy rest, the kind given only when the soul is held in perfect hands. And while Adam sleeps, God begins. Creation moves again, not with the grand sweep of galaxies or the booming command that summoned mountains from the deep, but with the intimate precision of a sculptor shaping something treasured. God reaches to Adam's side, touching the place where life pulses steady and warm. A rib simple, curved, protected by flesh, is taken not in harm, but in holiness. There is no wound, no cry, no fear. Only the quiet work of the Creator who delights in giving form to what is good. From this rib, God builds, not from dust this time, but from living matter, from something close to Adam's heart. A partner, a companion, a reflection of shared essence, someone capable of standing in conversation, in friendship, in love, someone who will answer the unspoken longing that has brushed Adam's spirit like wind passing over still water. The forming is slow, deliberate, reverent. Nothing in Eden has ever been rushed. In the shaping of Eve, God pours a gentleness that echoes through eternity. The curve of her hands, the quiet strength in her posture, the grace held within her breath. She is woven with purpose, completed with intention. When she opens her eyes for the first time, the world around her glows as though it has been waiting for her gaze. The garden welcomes her. The trees seem to bow, their leaves whispering with delight as sunlight settles warmly on her shoulders. Rivers murmur softly, weaving silver threads through the earth. The breeze touches her face with the familiarity of an old friend. In this world she has never known, there is already a song, and she stands at the center of it. God leads her gently. Adam stirs as God brings her near. His sleep loosens, the boundary between dreaming and waking thinning until light breaks through. When his eyes open, the first thing he sees is her, a figure shaped from his own being, yet wholly distinct, wholly radiant, wholly other. He sits up slowly, breath catching in reverent wonder. For a moment, time itself seems to pause, allowing space for recognition to bloom. He knows her. Without instruction, without explanation, he knows her. She is the answer to the H he could not name. With a voice that trembles not from fear, but from awe, Adam speaks words that rise as naturally as breath. This one, at last, is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. His voice folds around the truth God has set before him. They are not strangers. They are intertwined by origin, connected by divine intention. Eve listens. The words settle around her like sunlight through branches, gentle and affirming. She steps toward Adam. Steady, unhurried, and as she does, something like harmony forms between them. Not merely attraction, not merely companionship, but a unity woven so deeply that the very air around them seems to glow with it. Together they stand beneath the canopy of Eden. Above them, the sky opens wide, clear as polished stone. Around them, every living thing seems to breathe in rhythm with their shared presence. The lion lies peacefully nearby, its golden eyes soft. Birds with wings like shimmering jewels flit from branch to branch, singing notes that drift like prayer. Even the quiet earth beneath their feet feels warm, welcoming. They begin to walk, side by side, step for step. Adam points out the rivers that wind like living ribbons across the land. Kishon, Gaon, Tigris, Euphrates. He shows her the trees whose leaves dance in the light and the fruit that glows like small lanterns. Eve listens with a calm attentiveness, absorbing each detail with gratitude. She touches the bark of a tree, bends to feel the coolness of running water, lifts her face to catch the softness of the breeze. Everything is new, yet everything feels like home. In their movements, a wordless understanding grows. Adam sees in Eve not a fragment, but a fullness. Eve sees in Adam not a stranger, but a companion shaped for her life. Together, they complete what the garden has waited to witness. The first union, not bound by ceremony, but by the sacred design woven into the fabric of their creation. They rest beside a stream whose waters curl around polished stones. Adam tells Eve of the creatures he has named. The gentle deer that leaps through sunlit patches, the careful fox who studies him from afar, the great winged birds that carve circles in the sky. Eve watches them with a quiet smile, seeing in each one a reflection of God's imagination. She marvels at the diversity, the patterns, the colors. Every creature seems to recognize her, greeting her with curiosity, as though creation itself breathes easier now that she is here. When evening comes, the sky becomes a tapestry of deep blues and warm golds. Fireflies shimmer like distant stars fallen to earth. Eve leans close to the water, watching the way twilight paints her reflection. She touches the surface, breaking the image into soft ripples. Adam joins her, his reflection beside hers. Two faces mirrored in the same water, two lives sharing the same breath of earth. There is no shame here, no fear, no distance. Innocence wraps around them as gently as the night air, and the garden guards their peace. They sleep beneath the branches of a tall tree whose leaves rustle like lullabies. Adam drifts first, his breath steady, his spirit at ease in a way he has never felt before. Eve lies near, the rhythm of her heartbeat syncing with the soft chorus of Eden. Above them, constellations flicker like watchful eyes, reminding the world that what God has joined is the beginning of something profound. As the moon rises high, a quiet truth settles over the garden. This union, this shared breath, this shared life, is not only a gift, but a reflection of a greater harmony, a reminder that creation thrives when companions walk in step, a reminder that peace grows where unity resides. And somewhere in the gentle darkness, the next chapter of their story waits, an unseen horizon just beginning to dawn. Morning in Eden carries a light that feels almost weightless, as though the sun itself walks gently through the garden. Dew settles on blades of grass like tiny pearls, catching soft glimmers that dance with the earliest breath of wind. Birds stir in the branches, stretching wings that shimmer against the sky. Every sound blends into a quiet harmony, a world at rest, unbroken whole. Adam and Eve move through this peace with a natural grace, their steps unhurried, their spirits untroubled. The garden lives around them, beneath them, above them. Fruit hangs sweetly from boughs, flowers open like whispers, and the cool rivers wind their way through the landscape like silver threads sewn into green. It is a place where nothing harms, nothing threatens, nothing shadows the light, but beneath one cluster of branches belonging to a tree unlike all the others, something shifts. The tree stands at the heart of the garden, tall and still, its fruit gleaming with a quiet, forbidden glow. It has always stood there, a reminder shaped in living wood: do not eat. That single boundary holds the weight of choice, the measure of trust. Adam and Eve have walked past it many times. They have admired the pattern of its bark, the way its leaves murmur softly when the breeze touches them. But they have never reached out. Not once. Today, however, a presence curls around the tree's roots. A serpent, its body smooth and patient, its eyes glinting with an old, unsettling understanding. It moves with a slow grace, winding upward through the branches, silent except for the faintest brush of scales against leaves. This creature, crafted by God like all others, speaks now with a voice that carries something foreign, something jagged beneath its smooth surface. Eve stands nearby, her gaze lifted toward the tree's crown. The morning light frames her in warmth, and the gentle hush of Eden wraps around her shoulders. She studies the fruit, not with hunger, but with the simple curiosity of one who notices beauty. Adam is close, moving among the plants, tending quietly to the life around him. His presence is steady, grounding, unaware of the thread of deceit being drawn near. The serpent's voice breaks the stillness. It is soft at first, almost pleasant, like a breeze slipping through tall grass. Has God really said, it murmurs, that you shall not eat from any tree in the garden? Eve turns, startled not by fear. There is no fear in Eden, but by the unfamiliar cadence of the serpent's speech. She approaches without hesitation, her innocence intact, her trust unfractured. We may eat of the fruit of the trees. She replies gently, her voice calm as the river nearby. But of the fruit of the tree in the midst of the garden, God has said, you shall not eat of it, nor touch it, lest you die. The serpent's eyes narrow, gleaming with a cunning not found in the gentle creatures of this place. It tilts its head, its voice slipping into the air like a subtle shadow. You will not surely die. The words fall softly but heavily, like stones sinking into deep water. Something trembles in the air around them. A slight shift, almost imperceptible. The garden holds its breath. For God knows, the serpent continues, that in the day you eat of it, your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. Eve listens. She does not step back. She does not flee. The serpent's words create an echo that stirs her thoughts, nudges her attention. She looks again at the fruit, a fruit she has passed hundreds of times without longing. But now something draws her. Not a hunger of the body, but a question, a wondering at the edge of her understanding. The fruit is pleasant to the sight. It glows softly in the morning sun, its surface smooth, almost inviting. She lifts her hand, not touching, just tracing the air beside it. Her thoughts ripple with the serpent's promise. You shall be as gods. You shall know. Behind her, Adam stands still, noticing the shift in her posture. He turns toward her, his expression soft, unalarmed. He trusts her curiosity, her discernment, just as she trusts his. For a moment, silence gathers around them, thick and tender. The world seems to wait. Eve reaches out. Her fingers curl around the fruit. The moment they make contact, the air grows heavier, as though the garden itself tightens in anticipation. She lifts it slowly, watching the way light glints along its surface. Adam watches her, a quiet question forming in his eyes but no words leaving his lips. The fruit touches her mouth. She bites. The sound is small, barely more than a whisper, but it reverberates through the garden like a tremor. Something unseen, something woven into the fabric of innocence, shivers. A shift begins, subtle, then spreading, like a ripple widening across still water. Eve tastes sweetness first, a rush of flavor, bright and full. But beneath it lies something sharper, something strange. She swallows, her breath catching in a way she cannot quite explain. Then she turns, holding the fruit out to Adam. He takes it. There is no force in her gesture, no pressure in her eyes. Only the quiet offering of what she has already chosen. Adam hesitates for the briefest moment, a pause that seems to stretch long enough for the garden to hope. But he lifts the fruit to his mouth. He eats. The hush of paradise breaks. Their eyes open. Not in the bright clarity of enlightenment, but in the heavy awareness of vulnerability. Something shifts within their spirits, a trembling realization that wraps around them like a sudden, chilling breeze. They look at each other and for the first time they see something unfamiliar: nakedness. Exposure, shame. They turn from the tree, from the serpent, from the innocence that still hangs faintly in the air like the fading smoke of a candle. They move quickly, hands reaching for leaves, for coverings, for anything that might hide the ache now blooming within them. They sew fig leaves together, creating garments that feel clumsy, too thin, too fragile to soothe the turmoil rising in their chests. The garden senses the change. The river slows its singing, the birds quiet. Even the trees seem to lean back, their branches withdrawing like gently closing hands. The unity that once tied Adam and Eve seamlessly to creation begins to loosen, threads pulling away from one another. They do not speak. Their breath trembles. They step away from the tree, away from the serpent now silent in the branches. The heart of Eden feels different now, less like home, more like a memory slipping out of reach. Shadows lengthen across the ground, though the sun still shines. The air grows heavier, as though carrying a sorrow too deep for words. Adam feels the weight of his heartbeat, each thud loud in his chest. Eve touches the leaves covering her, her fingers trembling with the strangeness of uncertainty. The world has not darkened, but something within them has. They walk, not in peace, but in confusion. And as they move through the garden that once reflected their harmony, they sense the wound they have created without fully understanding its depth. Somewhere behind them, the tree stands unchanged, its branches reaching upward, its fruit still gleaming. But the bond between humanity and innocence has shifted, opening a quiet, irreversible fracture. Evening will come soon. Evening with footsteps that once brought comfort. Evening with a presence that once warmed the air with love and familiarity. Now, they do not know how they will meet him. They only know that something has changed. Something they cannot undo, and the whisper that began in the leaves still lingers, faint, distant, but lingering like a fading echo over a garden beginning, ever so gently, to mourn. It began with a single bite, quiet and trembling. The fruit glistened in their hands, and when Adam and Eve tasted it, the sweetness felt heavy, almost sorrowful. In that moment, something invisible broke. A thread, a hush, a holiness that had always wrapped the garden in peace. Sin had entered, not with thunder, but with a whisper. And suddenly their eyes opened. They saw themselves not as they had been, but as something exposed and unfamiliar. Nakedness, once pure and effortless, now felt sharp and fragile. In their confusion, they gathered fig leaves and stitched them together, trying to cover what innocence once guarded. It was their first attempt to hide the shame they did not yet understand. Then came the sound. Soft footsteps, familiar and once loved. The gentle presence of God walking in the cool of the day. But instead of running toward him, they slipped into the shadows, hearts pounding beneath the thin layers of leaf and fear. They hid, not because they were lost, but because guilt rewrote their instinct to trust. "Adam, where are you?" The voice was tender, not thunderous. It was the call of a father who already knew, yet asked because love always calls before it corrects. Adam stepped out, trembling. "I heard you in the garden, and I hid, because I was naked." The words tumbled out like broken pieces. Then came the question that touched the heart of the wound. "Have you eaten from the tree I commanded you not to eat from?" Adam lowered his eyes. "The woman you gave me, she gave me the fruit, and I ate." His voice carried the weight of blame, a wound that sliced through trust for the first time. And Eve, with trembling breath, whispered, "The serpent deceived me, and I ate." Blame drifted between them like falling leaves, soft but devastating, widening the distance between them and God. God turned to the serpent first. "You have done this." The words fall like a stone into still water, simple, devastating. The serpent's eyes flicker, its once subtle limbs bend, wither, collapse. A shudder ripples through its body as Eden itself rejects what it has become. "Cursed are you above all livestock and all wild animals." Creation trembles. "You will crawl on your belly." The serpent sinks fully into the dust, its form pressed low in eternal humiliation. "And dust you will eat all the days of your life." The dust clings to its dulling scales. No longer a creature of height or cunning grace, now reduced to the ground it deceived. Adam watches, breath unsteady. Eve feels the curse settle over the moment like a heavy veil. Yet the judgment is not only punishment. There is prophecy. "I will put enmity between you and the woman," God declares, "and between your offspring and hers." Something stirs in the air, something ancient and unborn. Eve feels it like a spark beneath her ribs. A future not yet formed, yet already promised. "He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel." The first whisper of redemption unfurls in the midst of ruin. The serpent recoils, understanding enough to tremble. Then God faced Eve. Pain would enter her story, deep, sharp, and woven into the bringing forth of life. And the unity she shared with Adam would now feel the strain of desire mixed with struggle, love shadowed by the world's new brokenness. To Adam, God spoke of earth becoming hard. The ground, once soft and generous, would resist him with thorns and sweat. Bread would come through labor, and strength would fade beneath the weight of toil. And at the end of his days, the dust that once held life would take him back again. Yet even here, in the midst of consequence and sorrow, mercy appeared like a soft glow. God made garments for them, garments of skin, warm, lasting, protective, coverings far better than fragile leaves. And for these garments, blood had to be shed, the first sacrifice in a world now marked by sin, a quiet foreshadow of a future redemption still centuries away. Finally, with a sorrow deeper than thunder, God led them to the garden's edge. Eden lay behind them, its gates soon guarded by a flaming sword to keep them from returning to the tree of life. The world ahead was vast and unknown, wild fields, windswept valleys, untamed soil. But even in exile, they did not walk alone. For the God who judged them was also the God who clothed them. And the God who sent them out was the same God who would someday bring them home again through grace. And so the first chapter of humanity closed with footsteps leaving paradise, not abandoned, but guided, not destroyed, but beginning anew as the story of redemption quietly began its long journey through time, through promise, and toward the one who would crush the serpent forever. The first morning east of Eden rises slowly, as if the sun itself hesitates before stepping into this new world with Adam and Eve. Gone is the effortless glow of paradise, where dawn spilled like liquid gold over gentle fields. Here, the light comes with a quieter resolve. It crawls across rougher soil, climbs over hills shaped without the softness of Eden's sculpted grace, and warms two figures who feel both smaller and heavier than they did only a day before. The air carries a crispness they are not used to. Adam draws it in, feeling how it fills his lungs but not his spirit. Eve wraps her arms around herself, not for cold alone, but for the strange vulnerability of a world without Eden's embrace. They stand together in this new space where everything is familiar in shape but foreign in tone. A world that feels like a sketch of creation rather than its masterpiece. Yet the morning does not pause for sorrow. Its light stretches out, inviting them to take their first steps into the life that now waits before them. Adam kneels first, running his hands through the earth. It is soil, yes, but it does not respond to him as Eden's did. There, the ground opened eagerly beneath his fingers, soft and rich, holding the promise of effortless fruit. Here, the earth is stubborn. Its surface resists him, and the dirt beneath carries a weight that makes his arms ache. Still, he digs. There is no command from heaven that morning. No voice in the cool of the day, no footsteps approaching with gentle wisdom. Yet the task settles into his bones as naturally as breathing. He works because the world now requires it, because life must be coaxed forward, because survival is no longer a gift but a labor. Nearby, Eve walks the perimeter of what will one day become their home. Her feet feel the uneven ground, and the wind tugs at her hair. In Eden, she walked with curiosity. Here, she walks with intention. Each step measures the space where her family will live, grow, and grieve. She pauses at the foot of a small hill where the sunlight rests like a blessing. It is here, she decides, they will build their first dwelling. Her hand drifts to her belly, not because she knows yet, but because the body remembers what the mind has not fully realized. There is an ache there, soft and new, like the stirring of a seed deep in the earth. Life, in its quiet insistence, begins again. Days turn into weeks. The rhythms of this world take shape slowly, almost shyly. Adam learns the language of thorns and the stubbornness of weeds. His hands grow calloused, his back strong. Sweat becomes a companion he never met in Eden. At first, every drop feels like a reminder of loss, but over time, the act of working the soil becomes strangely grounding. Each stroke of the hoe, each lifted stone, teaches him something about perseverance. Eve learns a different rhythm. Hunger rises and falls like a tide, pushing her to gather berries, roots, wild grains. She discovers which plants soothe aches and which soothe fear. The world speaks to her in small ways. Through the birds that return at dawn, through the rustling grass that dances differently when rain is near. She listens, and the world slowly begins to feel less like exile and more like possibility. Nights are the hardest. The darkness outside Eden feels deeper, less friendly. The stars seem sharper, almost too bright, like distant eyes that remember what they once watched. Adam often sits awake long after Eve has fallen asleep, staring at the sky, feeling the ache of the life they lost. Sometimes he whispers prayers into the night, fearing they will dissolve before reaching heaven. But always some small comfort answers. Not a voice, not a vision, just a presence that rests in the quiet, as though God walks still, only in ways they cannot yet see. And then one morning, Eve realizes the ache in her belly has grown. Not hunger, not fear, life. A new life stirring within her. She stands beneath the early light, her hand pressed to her abdomen, tears gathering in her eyes. Not sorrow this time. Something gentler. Something like hope blooming in the cracks of loss. "Adam," she whispers, and he comes to her with dirt still clinging to his hands. She takes his wrist, places his palm where her own had rested. His breath catches. The world seems to pause for them, as if creation itself waits to see what they will do with this miracle entrusted to them. For the first time since leaving Eden, Adam's eyes soften fully. "We are not abandoned," he murmurs, voice trembling. Months pass. Eve's body changes with a grace that feels ancient and new all at once. She moves more slowly, her strength divided between the work of survival and the work of creation. Adam takes on more tasks, though he often insists that she rest, lifting heavy stones himself, gathering wood in wide armfuls, learning the patience of a man who understands both duty and devotion. Eve spends long evenings sitting in the doorway of their simple shelter, watching the horizon shift through colors Eden never showed them. She holds her belly as the child moves, feeling the strange bond between creation and creator reflected in her own body. Sometimes she sings softly, songs she does not remember learning, but that rise from a place deeper than memory. When the child comes, the world stands still. Pain, sharp and primal, tears through her like a storm. Adam holds her hands, trembling more than she does. The night feels endless, but then, with a cry that seems to echo both earth and heaven, a small life emerges into the world, a son. Warm, fragile, breathtaking. Eve holds him against her chest, tears slipping down her cheeks, not of grief, but awe. Adam kneels beside her, unable to speak. The child's tiny fingers curl around his, and something inside him breaks open. A tenderness that Eden never required, but exile now reveals. They name him Cain, for they have gotten a man with the help of the Lord. Even in this world beyond the garden, God's nearness has not faded. Time unfolds gently after Cain's birth. Adam teaches him how to touch the earth without fear. Eve teaches him to listen to the wind, the birds, the quiet murmur of growing things. Their life is still difficult. Hunger, storms, long nights, but woven through it all is a thread of resilience. Love becomes the new fruit of their labor, and when another child comes, Abel, gentler, quieter, with eyes that seem to reflect the sky itself, Eve understands something she could not in Eden, that paradise was never meant to contain the fullness of what life could become. There is hardship here, yes, but there is also growth, discovery, beginnings, a world learning to breathe anew. And though Adam still sometimes looks westward toward the unseen garden he once walked, he no longer sees only what was lost. He sees what is given, what is possible, what is slowly, stubbornly, beautifully being built. Life, east of Eden, is not paradise, but it is life. And life, in all its fragile wonder, carries the quiet echo of the God who shaped them, who walks with them still, even when his footsteps are softer than twilight. Morning settles softly over the early earth, laying a pale shimmer on the fields and the distant hills. It is a world still young enough that silence carries weight, still tender enough that each footstep feels like the first. In this quiet place, east of Eden's fading memory, two suns grow beneath the same stretch of sky. They rise from the same soil that once cushioned their parents' grief, the same dust shaped by God's breath. Yet from the beginning, their hearts bend in different directions, shaped by the work they choose, the rhythms they keep, the ways they listen to the world. Cain is the firstborn, steady-handed, deliberate, a cultivator of earth. He wakes with the sun, feeling the soil shift beneath his fingers as though it answers him. The ground is stubborn now, unruly after the curse, but he wrestles with it day after day. He tills and sweats, pushes and coaxes, learns its moods, its seasons, its grudges. There is satisfaction in the work, but there is bitterness too, like a thorn buried in the heel. Cain does not say it aloud, yet inside him grows a quiet ache. Why must everything he touches fight back? Abel, younger and gentler, walks with the flocks. His world is movement, soft hooves, grazing breaths, the woolen warmth of lambs pressing against each other. His hands are accustomed not to breaking ground, but to guiding creatures. He reads their needs in silence, senses their hunger, their fear, their contentment. Where Cain presses against the earth, Abel moves with it, as though drawn into its pulse. There is work in tending sheep, but there is also rest, an unhurried rhythm that slows the heart. Two brothers, two vocations, both necessary, both ancient echoes of survival after Eden. And yet, beneath their differences, something deeper has begun to take root. Seasons pass. Their parents watch with hope that perhaps these sons will carry forward what they once lost: trust, harmony, obedience. But the shadow of their own choice lingers like a bruise on the family's memory. Adam teaches them what God commanded. Eve tells them of the garden, not to stir longing, but to keep truth alive. They grow knowing both the cost of disobedience and the possibility of drawing near to the one who made them. One day comes, quiet as the rest, when each son brings an offering to the Lord. Cain gathers the fruit of the ground, produced from the soil he has labored over. He arranges it with care, though his hands tremble slightly. He brings what he has, but something in his heart falters. Perhaps it is haste, perhaps reluctance, perhaps the hidden bitterness that work has pressed into him. What he offers is real and hard-earned, yet something about it is incomplete, shadowed, lacking the wholeheartedness that worship asks for. Abel comes carrying the firstborn of his flock, the tender, unblemished lambs, their best portions. He brings them not out of duty but devotion, something bright and sincere rising within him. His offering is not merely a gift, it is a surrender, a breathing out of gratitude. In his eyes, God has given everything, and so he too gives everything he can. And in a moment that will echo through centuries, God looks with favor on Abel's offering. A warmth rises around the shepherd, the kind that settles deep into the bones. It is acceptance, acknowledgement, a quiet smile from heaven. But Cain feels the absence of that warmth. His offering stands untouched, unanswered. Nothing stirs around it, no divine breeze, no holy recognition. The silence feels sharper than any rebuke. It catches in his chest, hardening into something heavy. His face tightens, his shoulders sink. His eyes darken beneath the weight of disappointment. Shame draws itself across his heart, and shame, when it festers, often grows into anger. The Lord speaks to him, not with condemnation, but with a father's steady gentleness. Why are you angry? Why is your face fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door. Its desire is for you, but you must rule over it. These words settle on Cain like dew, but he does not let them sink in. Instead, he turns them over and over, feeling them scrape against the ache already growing within. He imagines the difference between himself and Abel widening, stretching into something unbearable. He sees Abel's offering accepted, his own refused, not understanding that the issue is his heart, not the gift. Days pass, and the bitterness grows. It grows in the quiet moments, in the long stretches of field work, in every reminder that Abel walks with a lightness he cannot seem to find. Cain feels the world tilt against him. He feels God's nearness to his brother as a wound rather than a comfort. Then comes the moment. Cain speaks to Abel, a simple invitation, perhaps, or just a suggestion to walk with him into the field. There is no warning in his voice, no tremor that gives away the storm inside him. Abel follows, unaware of the shadows crowding his brother's heart. The field stretches before them, open and silent, the grass bending under the morning wind. They walk together at first, two brothers shaped from the same blood. But then Cain stops. Something in him breaks open. His anger, sharpened by comparison and fed by pride, surges upward like a flood that has finally found a breach. And he rises against Abel. The scripture gives no embellishment, no description of the struggle, no detail of the cry. It simply states the truth. And when they were in the field, Cain rose up against Abel his brother and killed him. In one moment, innocence shatters. The earth, once a cradle, becomes a witness. The air holds its breath. The ground receives the first blood ever spilled by human hands. It sinks into the soil, staining it with a crimson memory that will never fully fade. Cain stands over the stillness he has created. The field that once listened to the footsteps of two brothers now holds only silence. A silence so deep it might swallow him whole. The Lord's voice comes, not rushed, not furious, but heavy with sorrow. "Where is Abel your brother?" Cain answers, his words brittle but defiant. "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" And God replies with a truth that cannot be hidden. "What have you done?" The voice of your brother's blood cries to me from the ground. The earth has spoken, not with words, but with a testimony of loss, pain, and the breaking of family. Abel's life, though ended, still echoes upward. Judgment comes, gentle yet firm. Cain is cursed from the ground he once tilled. He becomes a wanderer, a fugitive, cut off from stability, from the soil he loved, from the land that once carried his footsteps. His cry rises in fear. "My punishment is greater than I can bear." Yet even in judgment, God places a mark of protection on him, a sign that vengeance belongs not to men, but to the one who sees all. Cain leaves, walking into a land far from his parents' dwelling. The distance grows with every step, carrying him farther from what he once knew, from the brother he can never reclaim. Back at home, Adam and Eve are left with the weight of two losses. One son buried, the other gone. Their hearts fracture anew, but grief teaches them to breathe through sorrow. Their story, though shadowed, is not finished. Life continues, even as silence lingers in the field where Abel fell, and Abel, though his voice has quieted, still speaks. His faithfulness remains a whisper through time, a reminder that God sees the heart, even when the world does not. The days after Abel's death move slowly, like shadows stretching across late afternoon ground. Silence gathers in the home of Adam and Eve, a silence not of peace, but of absence. It settles into corners, into memories, into the places where a younger son once laughed, once tended to gentle flocks, once lifted his eyes toward the Lord with uncomplicated devotion. The earth has taken him, and the wound it leaves does not close quickly. Adam feels it each time he steps outside, each time he sees the field's horizon or hears the distant bleat of animals. Eve feels it when she prepares meals, when she remembers how Abel's voice filled the mornings, when she sees Cain's abandoned dwelling in the distance, empty and cold. Loss presses into their days from both sides, one son buried, the other exiled. The ache becomes a companion, moving with them through work, through sleep, through the long stretches between. Time stretches forward, slow yet relentless, and with time comes the quiet realization that grief does not erase the promise God spoke over humanity. Though Eden remains behind them, though innocence lies broken, God has not withdrawn his presence from the world. In the stillness of evening, Adam and Eve recall God's words, his care, his protection even over Cain. They remember that though judgment fell, mercy did not vanish. One day, after pain has softened enough to let hope breathe again, Eve feels life stirring within her. A flutter, faint at first, but unmistakable. It comes with an unexpected warmth, as though God himself breathes reassurance over her heart. She says nothing at first, letting the awareness settle into her, letting it weave gently with her grief. When she tells Adam, his eyes widen, not with fear, not with surprise, but with a fragile gratitude. Their losses have carved deep furrows into their lives, but life returns. God still allows life to spring from them. The long months pass with a mixture of anticipation and reverence. Each movement in Eve's womb becomes a reminder that God's story is not finished. Each day brings them closer to something new. When the child is born, the air seems to shift, lightly, almost imperceptibly, like dawn pushing back the edge of night. Eve holds the newborn close, feeling the softness of his face against her skin, listening to the gentle rhythm of his breathing. Her voice trembles as she speaks the words that have gathered in her heart. God has appointed another seed for me instead of Abel, whom Cain killed. His name is Seth. The meaning carries weight, appointed, granted, set in place by divine intention. This is not a replacement, not a forgetting, but a continuation. A thread woven deliberately through sorrow, tying the past to the future. Adam kneels beside them, touching Seth's tiny hand. The child's fingers curl around his, a gesture both simple and profound. In that moment, Adam sees not just a son, but a legacy, an unfolding lineage, a continuation of the blessings spoken in Eden before the fall. God has not turned away. The story moves forward. Seth grows in a world still marked by Cain's shadow, yet softened by his parents' newfound tenderness. Adam and Eve watch him with quiet wonder, noticing the ways he resembles Abel and the ways he differs. Where Abel moved with gentleness, Seth moves with steadiness. Where Abel's faith seemed instinctive, Seth's curiosity blooms slowly, deliberately. His eyes hold questions about God, about the world, about the stories his parents tell him. Adam teaches him to understand the earth, not as Cain did, in struggle and frustration, but in patience, Eve teaches him the value of listening, of knowing when to speak and when to breathe instead. Together, they nurture a spirit within him that leans gently toward God. As Seth grows, the household expands. Brothers and sisters enter the world, each one weaving a new thread into the tapestry of humanity. The home hums again with life, voices, footsteps, laughter. The emptiness Abel left does not vanish, but life makes room around it, shaping something new. Grief no longer rules the home, it becomes one strand of a larger story. With time, Seth becomes a man. He walks differently from his brothers, not heavy with labor nor restless with longing, but with a thoughtful calm. He seeks the Lord, not out of fear, not out of tradition, but out of a quiet yearning for nearness. He feels God's presence not only in the echoes of stories from Eden, but also in the rhythm of his own heart. And then comes the moment Scripture records with gentle simplicity. To Seth also a son is born, and he called his name Enosh. At that time men begin to call upon the name of the Lord. The world shifts again, subtly, profoundly. Enosh's birth marks more than another child entering the world. It marks a turning of hearts. It marks the rise of communal worship, the beginning of humanity lifting its voice together toward heaven. Adam and Eve watch this unfold with a mix of awe and relief. Worship is no longer a solitary act found only in one son's heart. It becomes a legacy, a heritage, a practice that spreads like morning light. Where Cain walked away from the presence of the Lord, Seth grows toward it, and from him others follow. A line begins, a line that will stretch far beyond what Adam and Eve can see. A line that carries faith, hope, remembrance. A line preserved not by strength, but by the delicate choice to call on the Lord's name. Eve holds Enosh, gazing into the face of her grandson, and feels something she thought she might never feel again. Completion, not the completion of Eden. No, that chapter remains sealed, but the completion of knowing that God continues to walk with them, even outside the garden's gates. Adam watches the next generation rising, small feet learning to walk on ground that once cursed him. He sees Seth teaching the children to pray, to seek, to listen. He sees the beginnings of something ancient and enduring. Humanity grows, slowly, steadily, beautifully. The world widens with each birth, each prayer, each act of worship whispered into the quiet of evening. Seth's name becomes a promise that even when darkness falls, light continues to flicker. Even when a brother's voice is silenced, another rises with praise. Even when sin enters the world, God's patience remains. And within this expanding world, the first family learns to breathe again. Their sorrow does not disappear, but through Seth, it is woven into hope. Hope that stretches beyond themselves. Hope that hints at a greater story still unfolding. The long stretch of years settles over Adam like a mantle woven slowly by time. He has lived through seasons that roll across the earth in a steady rhythm. Seed time and harvest, day and night, heat and cold, just as God said they would. The world has changed around him, widening with the footsteps of those who came from him, yet in the quiet corners of his memory, Eden still breathes like a distant fragrance. He carries it within him, not as a place he can return to, but as a soft echo of the world as it once was. Adam grows older with a dignity shaped by labor and by loss. The scriptures name his years clearly, 930 of them. Years filled with sons and daughters, with toil upon the soil that once yielded freely, and with the weight of choices made long ago. It is a long life, a life that bridges the purity of beginning with the steady unfolding of humanity's story. There is no record of Eve's age or passing. Scripture simply lets her presence fade softly into silence, leaving only what is written: her name, her motherhood, and the echoes of her joy and sorrow. The story of her days continues in the lives of her children, but the details rest beyond the page. As Adam ages, he watches generations rise from the ground he tills. He sees Cain's wandering, though the scripture does not tell us how often their paths crossed afterward, nor what words might have passed between them. He sees Seth grow, the son given in place of Abel, Seth, through whom the line of those who call on the name of the Lord begins to take shape. The story of worship, the story of seeking God, passes down through Seth's descendants, and Adam lives long enough to see the early ripples of that devotion spread across the earth. The years stretch on, and Adam feels the weight of time settling into his bones like dust on an old stone. He knows the world as it was before sin's shadow ever fell, and he knows the world as it is now. Changed, heavier, but still carrying traces of God's goodness. The ground that once opened to receive Abel's blood now yields harvests through sweat and persistence. It is harder than Eden ever was, yet Adam continues his work faithfully, honoring the command to cultivate the earth. The memories of Eden shimmer like fragments of early morning light. He remembers the sound of God walking in the garden in the cool of the day, a sound that once brought peace. He remembers the river that divided into four, flowing out to water everything with ease. He remembers the innocence of naming creatures, the joy of discovering their shapes and sounds. And he remembers the moment when breath was formed in dust and life became a living soul. His first moment, held in the warmth of God's nearness. Those memories remain a quiet part of his spirit, even as the weight of years dims his strength. Adam watches his children grow old, some gentle, some restless, some wandering far across the land. He sees the earth fill with people, each one carrying a spark of the breath first given to him. The story of humanity broadens, and Adam stands like a bridge between beginning and becoming. Scripture does not tell us Adam's final thoughts, nor the final conversations he might have shared with his family. It simply tells us that his life lasted 930 years, and then he died. The verse is simple, but its simplicity carries a profound softness. The quiet truth that the first man, formed from dust by God's own hands, returned to that dust in God's appointed time. Adam's passing is the first recorded death of a long life fully lived. Abel's death came first, but it was a life cut short by violence. Adam's death is the first to mark the natural completion of days, the first to show the full arc of human life unfolding as God said it would. His final breath returns to the one who gave it, completing a circle that began in the stillness of creation. His children and grandchildren, great-grandchildren and beyond, continue to fill the earth, carrying with them the memory of their first father. They know he walked with God in a world untouched by sin. They know he saw beauty that none of them have seen, and they carry that story like a treasure passed from one generation to another. Adam's life becomes the earliest chapter in the long narrative of humanity, a narrative that will stretch far beyond his years, reaching valleys, mountains, nations, and promises yet to come. The dust settles, the breath returns, and humanity's story continues, stepping forward from the place where the first two once stood, shaped by God, held by grace, and carried onward by time. And as Adam's long life folds into stillness, the world he leaves behind widens with every heartbeat of his descendants, preparing quietly for the stories yet to come. And so, dear friend, the candle of this ancient night burns quietly to its end. You have walked through the first footsteps of humanity, through breath and innocence, through choice and consequence, through the tender ache of beginnings that shaped everything that followed. Though centuries have passed, their echo still hums in the quiet, a reminder that even our earliest stories carry a wisdom that does not fade. Thank you for sharing this stillness with me tonight, for letting your heart lean into something old, something gentle, something sacred. It means more than you know. This shared quiet between us, this moment where the world softens enough for you to simply be. In listening, you've become part of a line of dreamers and seekers, passing these stories forward like small lanterns across the dark. Now, let the weight of the day slip from your shoulders. Let your breath fall into an easy rhythm. There is nothing left to solve, nothing left to hold. Only rest, rising like a tide around you. May your dreams carry you softly through the night, and may peace settle over you like warm dusk settling over an old, quiet garden. This has been the Sleeping Hourglass, where time slows, where stories breathe, and where the past tucks you gently in. If this journey brought you comfort, you are always welcome to return, to wander another path of history, to rest in another whisper of the world that came before. For now, close your eyes, drift gently, and let the hush of history cradle you into sleep. Good night.